Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us, 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim live in Green Bay. We may have a couple people file in here by the end of the show. I don't know. Right now, though, Tim, I'm ready to tag team this episode and get out here and talk a little Packers this evening, man. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Got some work done today around the house. Was out in the garage, little garage therapy. It's raining, you can't do much in the line of outdoor work, but you can be in the garage when it's raining. So
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
How about you? Were you busy? How's the weather down by you, man?
Beautiful, man. We were about 85 degrees today, sunny, a little bit drier air, a little breeze blowing. So got done with the work day a little early, got home, got in the pool. Man, Lincoln, I tweeted out a picture of my German Shepherd Lincoln hanging out. Well, check this out. We're in the house eating dinner. The dogs are playing in the backyard. And I go to let them in. I open the door. Everybody came in but Lincoln. I'm like, where's Lincoln? Lincoln. Poke around. He is in the swimming pool. So he has figured out how to get in the pool. Now, he looked distraught. He was standing on his hind legs and still had about 1.5 feet out of the water. And he's looking at me like, what is this sorcery? It's the first time he's ever been in the pool. So
that's 100% your dog, Clayton. It sounds like you. He's just like you, man. Right in the pool.
He got drunk and fell off the deck, just like me. You know what I'm saying? It's the way that works. But anyway, it was a fun day though, man. It's every day that goes by, the shadows seem to get a little bit longer. You get a little more like fall. Tomorrow we got high school football. I'm excited about go watch my nephew play some ball. Going to eat some pizza there at the stadium, all that good stuff. This is the time of year where the diet gets thrown to the wolves, man. So no more diet. But anyway, I'll tell you who else has got good stadium food. That's Lambeau Field. And if you guys and gals want to get over to Lambeau Field, make sure you check out Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Guys, they've been Wisconsin-based since 92. They specialize in Packers tickets, Wisconsin's largest ticket source. Got offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. You can click on a link here in the video description that'll send you to their website, theticketking.com, where you can register for free as a customer and go ahead and start shopping for Packers tickets. Again, that is Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. We appreciate them sponsoring the show. A couple of things right off the bat here, Tim. Thanks for helping with the ticker there, my man. A little bit of news that, well, I guess you could call it news. I don't know if you're the same way, Tim. I'm pretty sure you are. I grew up watching John Madden call games, hearing his commentary with obviously Pat Summerall, and that was like the voice of professional football for me as a child. And with his passing a few years ago, it's tough. You see a legend like that, pass away that did so much for the game of football. There's actually a biographical drama that's going to be dropping here. And of all people, they got Nicolas Cage to play John Madden. So this is at Variety that tweeted this out. Said Nicolas Cage will portray John Madden, the legendary American football coach and sports commentator in Madden, a biographical drama from director David O. Russell.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait,
it's wild.
This is real.
This is real. And when
they landed on Nick Cage to play John Madden.
What's funny though, Tim, he'll probably crush it.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
When I seen it, I was like, why Nick Cage? But he'll probably
if it's a biopic, so maybe it's like this is younger, John Madden, maybe like this. There could be multiple actors playing John Madden, so we shouldn't be too critical there. But that did kind of throw me for a loop. I'm like, really? I wouldn't have thought Nicolas Cage.
Not in a million years. and I know people are going to laugh at it, and they're going to go, what? They're going to have the same reaction we did. Why the hell Nicolas Cage? But again, watch. He'll end up crushing it. He'll probably win some awards or something. But just hearing his life story, I don't know if you guys have watched it or not, but when we wrap up tonight, I highly encourage go to, right here on YouTube and type in John Madden of Football Life. It is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal to hear he just fell in love with the game of football as a young kid. It's just the all-American football story. It's just so cool. So I'm really excited about watching this, other than the shock factor of Nicolas Cage. Okay. So anyway.
Eric Sutherland in the chat.
Eric Sutherland says Tim's favorite commentator was Dennis Miller on Monday Night Football.
This is not the first time I've had to say this to Uncle Eric, but you watch your damn mouth there.
Watch your mouth. You close your mouth when you're talking to me.
That was an interesting experiment, though, right? Dennis Miller on Monday Night Football. Holy cow!
It was something.
Yeah,
there was many people fired up about it, and it was the perfect example, in my opinion, Tim, of the NFL, or more importantly, more specifically, I should say, networks, just thinking too hard about this. The thing that made Pat Summerall and John Madden so successful in calling games, Pat Summerall was a minimalist, meaning he would let you hear the crowd. He knew when to shut up and not talk. He would rather talk too little than too much. And John Madden brung this whole approach like it was so much passion for the game. And he talked about football, even though he was a former head coach. He talked about football like he was a fan. The boom, the whaps, the wops, all that stuff, right? Yep. And I think it was Joe Buck that said it best. He said, man, when you listen to Pat Summerall and John Madden call a game, it was like they were sitting next to you on the couch having a beer, right? That's really what it felt like. Yeah. So who's your favorite announcer of all time? Is it John Madden? Yeah.
Or sports in general. See, that's tough. I've got football. A lot.
Let's say football.
Oh, John Madden for sure. Madden and Summerall, you're right. That's childhood for us, right, Clayton? I mean, that was a weekly routine during the season, hearing those guys call a game. And you hit it on the head. That's why they were so good together, because their styles complemented each other so well. And there's still a void in the game without those two right now. We've got the new generation of these broadcasters, but certainly Madden and Summerall. And then I guess right now, of course, we have the best broadcast team in the business, Larry the Rock McCarron and Wayne Larrivee. We are lucky and blessed as Packer fans to be able to hear those guys call a game, man. It's something else.
Yeah, definitely, man. No doubt about it. For me, it was John Madden. As far as like pregame show and stuff, I love the Fox NFL Sunday. Still do to this day. And a lot of those guys are still on that set. I've gotten now to where I like the show before Fox NFL Sunday with Carissa Thompson and Charles Woodson and the whole gang. I think they did a phenomenal job there too. But yeah, for me, it's definitely John Madden for sure. So yeah, that's how I would see it there. Let's see here. GB from Wisconsin says, guys, any special method you prefer us tuning in? Rumble, YouTube, etc. Where do you get the most bang for your buck? I would suggest YouTube, but it's really, really important to make sure you're still subscribed to Rumble and X. And the reason being is because before we had some issues with YouTube where we had the channel suspended for a couple weeks and still never got an explanation why. So that does make me a little nervous to put all the eggs in that basket, if that makes sense. But I feel like YouTube is the best experience for watching our show. But whatever you prefer of those three, but just always know that if for some reason we stop going live on YouTube, we're still going live on X, we're still going live on Rumble. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. So, all right, Tim, one thing I wanted to do tonight, we'll get into it in a second. I wanted to ask some of the Patreon members, hey, what's on your mind? You had a question for the pod, that type of thing, kind of keep our finger on the pulse. Before we do, this was pretty cool. PFF Green Bay Packers had tweeted this out a few days ago. Michael Pratt, 83.6 passing grade versus the Browns. That was the second highest amongst rookie quarterbacks in week one. So, yes, that was a higher grade than Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears. Now, take it with a grain of salt, but I still think it's cool that, that is something that's kind of rare that happens. This is looking like a strong quarterback class, but also it's kind of looking like with Michael Pratt, we might have found a gem there in the later rounds. I'm excited about it, man. I really am. So
we kind of felt that way from the very moment that pick was announced.
Yeah,
I almost want to run back the live stream from the draft because that was when we got KT Oladapo, that was amazing. The only prediction I successfully hit on in that draft, but Michael Pratt, man, what a story, and it's almost kind of unreal that he's a Packer if you really think about it, because I don't know how he was on the board when we were picking, but to get him in the 7th round is just it's incredible, man. I'm like speechless. I don't know what to say, because I thought for sure 5 or 6, 5th or 6th round at the very latest he would have went. I didn't think he'd be on the board. And me, I was remember I kept screaming at Ryan that we should take a corner, and so they took Pratt, and then they took what was it, Kalen King after Pratt. So I got my corner in the end, but no, we were excited, man, from the moment that we knew he was going to be a Packer, and he's just looking really good. I mean, he's a rookie. Rookies are rookies. They're still raw because they've never played in this league. But you hit it on the head last night. We were talking about this. Once he starts really understanding and fully embracing Matt LaFleur's system and this playbook, and he's able to take the keys to the car and go drive it without, running over garbage cans in the driveway, chances are, Dad will let you take the car out again if you're good with it. So I think that's kind of where Michael Pratt's at right now. And I'll tell you, man, watching him roll out and throw on the run, his mobility is there. It really is. It's the decision making and the experience. That's all we need for his progression to continue,
Definitely. Coach Lynn in the chat said, how do the Raiders not draft Pratt in any round is beyond me. I completely agree. You know what this feels like to me too, Coach Lynn, was the 49ers when they drafted Brock Purdy. I remember hearing someone talk about this on a podcast that I believe it was the owner or one of the owners of the 49ers was in the draft room, and they kept looking up and seeing Brock Purdy's name, and they're like, you've got a third-round grade on him. Why aren't you drafting him? And the main reason was because they had, Trey Lance. Funny to think about now, right? You had to think Jimmy G and Trey Lance at the time. But what ended up happening, get to the very last pick in the draft, and that owner talked John Lynch into drafting Brock Purdy in the 7th round with the very last pick of the draft. And now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. At least he was last year. He's got to prove it year in and year out, just like Jordan Love does. But he had a really, really solid year last year. This kind of feels the same way. I think I want to say it was Ted Thompson, Bill Walsh. I can't remember who it was. Someone made a statement a long time ago that you want to draft a quarterback in every draft. Just take a swing, right? And it kind of feels like Michael Pratt. In some cases, people probably had a 3rd or a 4th round grade on him. Like Coach Lynn's saying here, it makes no sense why the Raiders wouldn't take a swing at him. But Coach, this as well as anyone, some organizations at every level of football, they value certain traits more than others, rather than how we as fans, I think a lot of times, Tim, we just look at a player like, overall, I think that's the best player there, right? So,
right. Very true. And, as Packer fans, especially with the quarterback position, we draft and develop. That's not a secret. A lot of other franchises don't necessarily take that approach, at least not to the degree that we do when you're talking about from GM on down to your staff and how you're building a team and having a stable of quarterbacks, right? Wasn't that a Ted Thompson quote too? The best time to take one's when you don't need one, or something along those.
I think that I want to say Bill Belichick said it too.
Okay.
It's just kind of common knowledge throughout the coaching and the front office ranks for sure. Yeah.
And this organization fully understands how that affects a veteran quarterback too, that's got 12, 13, 14 seasons under his belt, regardless of who that name is. When you draft the replacement, of course, feathers are going to be ruffled, but hey, the NFL should stand for no feelings league, because how you feel is one thing. And the reality of the situation is you have to put your best foot forward and the best talent on the field, regardless of what a player has done, potentially could do in the future. This is the now. We live in the now, and it's always good to have quarterbacks or have depth at the quarterback position. It's tough to keep them all on your team, but it's certainly a great strategy to just pick up on somebody and put that time in. I mean, look at Jordan Love. We talk about the time that he was kind of robbed of in his rookie year. Thank God it didn't stun his development, because he's looking just fine right now. And I think it's because of the approach that this organization takes when it comes to their quarterbacks. And the legacy, I believe, will continue on for years to come in Green Bay at that position for sure.
Yeah. Drew D said, didn't Wolf say that, talking about the, take a quarterback every year? I think it might have been Ron Wolf. And of course, he came from the whole West Coast philosophy. Again, people hear that West Coast offense and they think it's just about the offense. It was that whole culture and the way that Bill Walsh, kind of created a blueprint for putting an organization together from the top to the bottom, from the person who answers the phones to your starting quarterback, right? But yeah, I think you're right. I think Wolf did say that for sure. Jake Shavik said Bill Belichick. I'm not sure what he was referring to there.
That was that comment, like you said. Shavink was confirming that the best time to take one's when you don't need one.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, let's see what else we got here in the chat. There was one more too that I wanted to hit on. It was about trading, potentially trading Pratt. My whole thing there is you want to keep. Imagine if the 49ers had traded Brock Purdy, right?
Right.
What would they have gotten for him? At this point, what are you going to get? You trade a 7th and get a 5th, and then you watch him turn into Brock Purdy. That would suck. That would suck bad. But I think we're kind of getting back to the olden days of you remember in the 90s, Tim, Green Bay had just a wealth of quarterbacks. People like Mark Brunell. Kurt Warner was in camp one year, right? Let's see who else. Matt Hasselbeck was there, right? You had all these great quarterbacks that came through, and Green Bay would draft them, sign them, whatever. And then lo and behold, they've molded them into a great quarterback, and then they're off to play somewhere else, right? For me, Michael Pratt, we got to see more. I'm trying to curb the enthusiasm, but I'm telling you, everything he's shown up to this point, I think he's the real deal, and I think he's going to be. It makes me sleep a lot better knowing that he's got all the skills and talents to play the quarterback position and try to win you a game or two if for some reason Jordan does get banged up. Sean Clifford, listen, he's no pushover, right? He's going to battle his ass off in this quarterback camp battle here, but I think that Pratt's got as good a shot as Clifford does of holding that number 2 spot. Ben Holden said, who does Pratt remind you of? That's a great question. Who does Michael Pratt remind you of? Typically the first thing that comes to mind is probably the correct answer, Tim. Whether it's right or not makes no difference, but it's probably the one you truly believe. The first thing that came to mind for me, and this is a very small sample size outside of college, is Tony Romo. Tony Romo was mobile, but Tony Romo wasn't like obviously he wasn't like a Michael Vick or someone like that mobile, but he was a guy who can make those secondary plays. He could tuck it and run if he needed to. He played smart. He threw the ball accurately. He had quick release. I feel like Tony Romo was people were going to shake their head at this. I think he was somewhat underrated. And I know he got a lot of publicity being with the Dallas Cowboys and being a starting quarterback there. But I think Tony Romo was a really good quarterback. I think you take Tony Romo and put him on those Patriot teams. I'm not saying he would win as many as Tom Brady, but he's probably got several rings, But that's the first thing that came to mind for me. What about you, Tim? Anybody come to mind for you, man?
He reminds me of Michael Pratt. I'm just gonna,
That's it.
One of a kind right here, and he's a steal in the 7th round, and history will prove that in the long run. I truly believe that. We're gonna look back on this draft and go, man, we got this guy in the 7th round. No, I'm excited about him, and just knowing his story and the things that he's been through on his journey just to get here to be playing football. That's really why I say that. I guess off the top of my head, maybe like a young Matt Flynn kind of comes to mind, or one of those guys that we've seen. But no, I think he's his own man, and we'll see how he develops though too, because like you said, we have to see more, and he needs more reps, more time on that field to really get a good gauge. Anyone that watches us knows that we like to dissect things, right? Throwing into the net and all the drills at camp, and how did he look in these 5 snaps that we saw, and we won't know until we get like a heavy dose of him, right. Like a good smattering of him. So I think as the preseason rounds out, I fully expect he'll get more reps, and so will Clifford. So we should get a good idea of what we've got with Michael Pratt, at least bare minimum, before we go into week 1.
Yeah, definitely. Drew D in the chat said, in my opinion, you don't trade a quarterback you believe in until you can get at least a first. I think that's very well said. Yep. To think, all right, let's flip him for a couple of rounds earlier. Again, you got him on a rookie contract. If let's say that he projects out after training camp and you go, okay, he's going to be a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, not even a very good quarterback, but a good quarterback. You've got him for 4 years as a backup. That's a pretty good place to be in, And if somebody comes calling, like Drew D said, for a first-round pick, then you entertain it, right?
Yep.
I can see that for sure. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Drew D says, Pratt reminds me of Derek Carr. I can see that. A little bit of mobility, right? Yep. Good, accurate passer. Seems to read the defense well. And again, we're basing Pratt off of one preseason game, not even a whole preseason game, and the college tape, right? And in college, I could see a little Derek Carr for sure. Mike Berry said, why do I remember Frank Patrick? Sounds like a CPA somewhere. Who's Frank Patrick, Tim? You know who that is? I'm sure it's a player from the 80s, that I don't know.
Probably 80s. Yeah.
Probably is.
Quarterback Lynn Dickey's as far back as I can dig the cobwebs out, and maybe
you're talking about a dog too. Lynn Dickey was a dog, man. I love watching some of those highlight reels.
Yes, sir.
That was a high-powered offense. Roger Davis says Tony Romo, Eastern Illinois, my alma mater. Good stuff, Roger. All right, so let's shift gears here and let's look at some of these questions. All right, I basically reached out to our Patreon group and said, hey, gang, let's use this chat for questions for the show. So I'm going to try to keep up with it. Understand, guys, I'm not going to be able to put every question on the show. But if you guys ever get one and it's like, hey, I wonder about this, we may answer it in this chat. But also, if it's a really good one, we'll throw it on the show and maybe it'll spark a conversation piece, especially on days like this where we don't have any camp news today, things like that. Well, let's start with the first one here. Ron Samville says, why has Jayden Reed been so quiet in camp? Defense take his routes away? ? Ron, I haven't thought about Jayden Reed having a quiet camp until you said that. And I went, we have talked about Wicks making plays and Dobbs making plays and Dubose making plays and not Jayden Reed. I wouldn't read too much into it. I don't have an answer for you. First of all, let me say that. Other than maybe they're looking to get these other guys a little more work because they know what they've got in Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed was a stud last year. He was our best receiver. If people want to force the wide receiver one conversation on you, Tim, my wide receiver one would be Jayden Reed. That was the dude that stepped up last year, and that's strictly off of production. That's what you got to go off of. But you got to take on that at all, Tim. I know you've been at camp a little bit. Have you seen any Jayden Reed while you're at camp?
Yeah, I've seen him a little bit. Usually I'm on the defensive side of the field, but I did get to see him do a little bit of work, and there's some validity to that kind of question, that angle. Like, seems a little quiet, but I think the answer somewhere in between what you were just talking about. That I think we've got a lot of guys that this staff are trying to figure out how they're going to fit in to this scheme this year and the approach that this offense is taking this season. And Jayden Reed, being one of the established receivers, is a guy that you probably can maybe reduce the load on at camp and allow some of these younger guys to come up. I shouldn't say younger. Some of the newer guys to come into this system and see what they bring. Maybe they want to see more of Julian Hicks. Maybe they want to see more of Grant DuBose in different ways. And that could be the simplest explanation, tends to be the best one, hopefully, in this scenario. But I don't think it's due to anything with Jayden's game. I saw him working on the jugs machine, doing punt returns and stuff. I believe that was Tuesday. He was doing some work with the special teams. And we also got to remember, too, Reed has the same kind of quality we talk about with Christian Watson, where he draws a lot of attention from that secondary. If you're sending Scoot on a go, you're definitely going to have safety help over the top. Jayden Reed's a guy that can draw a linebacker out of position or cause a safety to come up at the worst possible time for that opposing defense. So, maybe they're just looking at expanding Jayden Reed's, repertoire and how they're going to utilize him this year. You've always talked about him at that flyer position, and I totally agree. So I'm interested to see how it'll look, but I think that's probably the best way we could try to answer that one, right, Clay?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And the thing that Jayden Reed brings to the table, it's similar to Christian Watson, how Christian Watson can draw a little extra attention because of his speed and his athleticism. Jayden Reed on those deep crossers really gets teams thinking of, okay, when they've got him in that 3, when they got Jayden Reed, when they got number 11 in that 3 spot, don't let him cross your face as a single high safety. Clamp down on that because they'll burn you on that climb route. And when you do that, now you've got the singled up coverage you're looking for on the right side or the left side, whichever side. And that's what you see with the Tay Wicks touchdown the other night, albeit a vanilla defense, but it is what it is, right? Dad in the chat, I don't know if it's your dad, my dad, somebody's dad, but they said, I believe Matt LaFleur answered that. He isn't going to show all his cards. I think that's probably – I wanted to answer the question like that, Pops, but I hesitated because it's like that's a pretty easy answer. It's kind of just because we don't truly know. But that would make the most sense. Like, hey, look, let's don't put too much Jayden Reed in the headlines out there. You know what I mean? Maybe we're thinking too much about it, too deep into it. But next question here, Tim. Cheesehead Murph, if you had to trade one wide receiver, who would it be has to be projected to make the squad, though.
Oh, man, why are you doing us like that, Murph?
And listen, this is the one I dreaded the most, but it's probably the best question of the group.
It is.
We're going to preface this, okay? Listen to me. We are not saying we want to trade these players, but if we had to, hey, you got to. Like Jacob likes to say, if somebody held a water gun to your head, okay, and made you choose a wide receiver to trade, all right, it was tough. So what I did was I pulled. You guys know one of the key statistics that I love outside of catch percentage, drop percentage, that type of thing, is receiver rating, which is passer rating when targeted. So I pulled up the Packers from last year and I sorted it worst to first. Receiver rating, passer rating when targeted. Okay, Henry Pearson obviously didn't have a catch, so just kind of scrap that. Next is Samori Toure. Okay, it has to be projected to make the roster. So the way I'm taking this, Tim, is it has to be one of those top 4 guys. Okay, so I'm going to make it even more difficult on you. It's got to be Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, or Dontavion Wicks. Okay, so when we go receiver rating, next is Samori Toure, 34. Patrick Taylor, not on the squad anymore, to 68.5. Look at who's 4th lowest. Christian Watson, 71.4. And again, this isn't going to turn into a bash fest. We're not saying we want to trade Christian Watson, but if you force me to trade a receiver, you got to go down this list pretty good ways to find the next one, which would be Romeo Doubs at a 97.3. And then you got to go down a little bit further to Bo Melton at a 109. Bo Melton isn't even in the conversation. And off of this list, who were the best were obviously Dontavion Wicks and Jaden Reed were right at the top of the list, right? So you wouldn't look to trade them, in my opinion. So for me personally, if I had to pick one, it would make the most sense to choose Christian Watson simply because the production hasn't been there. Even when he's on the field, I know he's had his times where he's done stuff that only Randy Moss has done in a short stint of time. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that he's got that world-class speed, Tim, that's going to probably garner a little more value in a trade. And if I'm looking at this from a statistical standpoint, I'm looking at receiver rating going, man, Dobbs would be next on the list. I would rather keep Jaden Reed and Dontavion Wicks than Romeo Doubs and or Christian Watson. That's just me personally. But Dobbs is so much higher than Christian Watson as far as receiver rating last year. I'd have to say Christian Watson would be my answer. And again, I'm not saying I'm trading Christian Watson. People, calm down. That would be my answer, though, Murph. Tim, good luck, buddy. I'm over here sweating bullets.
Man, I had to turn my camera off so you guys didn't see the tears. My brain is melting. But, hearing you kind of break that down and also having this is great that you pulled this to have this reference. And yeah, let's be honest. We're talking about Watson. We're talking about Dobbs, Reed, and Wicks, right?
Correct.
And all 4 of those guys are invaluable to your organization. But like we're saying, you're twisting my arm here and you're trying to squeeze an answer out of me. And I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. But yeah, I would trade Scoot as well in that situation. I love Romeo Doubs. Tay Wicks and Jaden Reed are the absolute future. And the reason I'm saying Scoot is because of the positive attributes about his game. You're absolutely right. The guy's got wheels. He's improved his hands a great deal since his rookie year. He had a lot of drop issues the rookie year. And I think he's going to garner more on the market. So if you're looking at this and you're putting your GM hat on, I think you're going to get more value, especially, if we fast forward here through this season and Scoot has a breakout year and is healthy and plays a lot of football, he's going to get even more value. So yeah, in this hypothetical, let's stress hypothetical scenario here, I would go with Christian Watson on the trade.
Got it. All right, let's see what the chat says here. We had a couple. Jake Shavink said Dobbs. And the reason I would push back against Dobbs, you got to score points to win ball games, right? Also, availability. And this is not me trying to dog Jake here. I think it's a respectable. It would be my second.
It answer. Is. Yeah, I was just going to say it's a respectable answer for sure.
But receiver rating, right? Pretty solid. Red zone target, dude scores points at will. Also availability, accountability.
Yep.
That dude, he's always available. Again, I think I would lean Watson, but Dobbs would be my second choice.
Wow.
2-0 for this says Watson. This is a great point. You kind of hit on this, Tim. Watson has so much potential. The rest of the league has to see that. And if he has his hammy issues under control, he is worth the most by far. And that's what I'm getting at. How much would you get in return for Romeo Dobbs as opposed to Christian Watson? I think Christian Watson, you're probably getting probably around a second or, at least a second round pick, maybe a third round pick. With Dobbs, I don't think the rest of the league sees him as valuable. And most of that value, Tim, comes with this chemistry that he and Jordan Love have created, even off the Packers in their offseason for so long, where they've worked together with the same trainers, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. And, this is one of those, this is like rare. This is like an eclipse. I'm actually not on the same page with Jake Shavink on this one. But it would be cool to really look at this from a, bird's eye view here. Getting all these different takes is good, because let's be honest, this could be a realistic scenario that we're going to have to deal with here in the relatively near future. That's the thing. We always talk about depth at any position group is a good problem to have. It's true, but keyword problem. It will be a problem trying to figure out how to crack open that checkbook and get everybody paid and happy, and figure out who the nucleus of your receiving core really is going to be as we go forward here. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Dobbs would probably, logically have to be the second choice for that question, right? Because Wicks and Reed are just so valuable.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Cheesehead Murph with the next question too. Do we think Matt LaFleur is going to be in the top running for Coach of the Year? Also, do we have a DB as the defensive rookie of the year? Appreciate it, Murph. Tim, I'll let you go first. Do you think Matt LaFleur will be in the running for Coach of the Year?
No, I'm going to say the same thing I've always said since he's gotten here. We're going to have to bring Lombardi home before he gets any respect in this league. I truly believe that. We got to get over the hump, get out of the NFC, and bring Lombardi home. Then we'll be able to have that conversation. But you look back at a smattering of these last 3 seasons. There was some in there where it was pretty more than debatable that he should have been Coach of the Year. Now, also, look at who you're up against though too. Last year was it who got it last year? Was it DeMeco Ryans who ended up winning Coach of the Year last year? I'm trying to remember.
I'll find out real quick. Keep talking, Tim.
Yeah, but there was just there's so much talent in these head coaching positions now, which is kind of the cool part of where we are in the the lineage of the NFL, right? We've got younger blood at the helm here. We've got some guys that are our age that are head coaches in this league, and it's pretty cool, man. But I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than like, well, what more can Matt LaFleur do to get Coach of the Year? It's like win a Lombardi. Yeah. I believe that's what's stopping this.
Yeah. 2-0 for this says Stefanski. So it was Kevin Stefanski who was with the Cleveland Browns last year, which he did. He did a hell of a job with the Cleveland Browns. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. But, I hope he took Joe Flacco out to dinner there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because that kind of got him over the hump there for sure, but well-deserved.
Definitely. Ron Samble says LaFleur is plus 1,200 Coach of the Year. If they win, like Tim says, might pay big. Ron Samble said it's not a guarantee, but it's a guarantee. So
Ron's trying to get me to bet on sports. He's gonna make me break my rule. I don't gamble on sports.
Definitely. Ron Samble also said 15-2 would get Coach of the Year.
I thought 13-3 back-to-back seasons would get Coach of the Year too.
That's a great point. I was just about to say 15-2 will get it done. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, Tim. 13-2 couldn't. Oh my God! And coaching back-to-back MVPs is just like,
yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so appreciate it, Murph. Great question there, buddy. John in the chat, or John in our Patreon group. And if you guys listen, if you want to join the Patreon group, be a part of that community, it's just a way you can support the show. No pressure at all. I have people ask me all the time. Well, you seen somebody earlier in the stream. We're like, hey, which one gives you the best bang for your buck and helps the show or whatever. If you want to join the Patreon group, you can scan that QR code in the upper right, or you can go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. There's like 3 tiers. You can join one of those 3 tiers. That'll put you in the chat where we're at right here. And also it gets you in the running to win awesome prizes. Like Cheesehead Murph just won a copy of Take Your Eye Off the Ball 2.0. I know, what's his name? Chewy. Chewy just won a really cool frame picture of Brett Favre, Bart Starr, and Aaron Rodgers together. So that's the type of stuff you can put yourself in there. It's just a way for us to give back to those who are supporting the show, but you can join there. We've also got a fantasy football league, 2 openings still available. It's exclusive to the Patreon group. You can click on the link that we've got another chat in there where you can click on it, take you to the fantasy football league and see if it, hey, do you want to do the entrance fee and all that stuff? It's got a payout at the end of the year. Really cool stuff there. So again, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access is how you kind of get involved with this stuff. So John Capel in the Patreon group said, should David Bakhtiari become a player coach? How would that work with the cap hit and his retirement? As far as his retirement, if he comes back, it's going to be a new contract, right? So a player coach is going to be treated just like a player from a contractual standpoint, right? Anytime you say this is the first time that's ever happened in this certain era of football, I would say highly unlikely, right? So should he? I don't think so. To me, Bakhtiari doesn't come across as the coach type. He comes across as just a world-class left tackle that fewer players while he was playing were better than him in his position, right? So,
and a guy that you do not want to get into a beer chugging contest with.
No, sir. That is true. That is correct for sure. Murph with another question says, if Stokes has a great season similar to Kevin King one good year, do we pay him or franchise tag him? That's a great question, Murph. Tim, let's say that Eric Stokes comes out this year and he grades out top 32, meaning PFF has him in the top 32 in overall defensive grade amongst cornerbacks, okay? And let's say that he plays all year, he proves he's healthy, and he's just a solid borderline number 1 corner, but at minimum one of the best, maybe a top 5 number 2 corner, okay? Would you be willing to pay him? Would you be willing to give him a contract? I would say no to the franchise tag for sure, but would you be willing to give him a contract?
I would question mark.
Some incentives maybe.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We're talking about Stokes, but it's like we got some heaters in that secondary now.
Great point.
So it's like, if these guys ball out too, and we're having the same conversation we just had about wideouts, about our corners. I don't know. I do think, though, that that's exactly what's going to happen this year. I think Eric Stokes is going to have himself a season, and he's going to make it real difficult to just, be run out of town, basically. We already didn't pick up the option. He knows what time it is. You talk about sending a message. That sends a pretty crystal clear message to a player without saying anything to him. So we're going to get 100% out of Eric Stokes. Not to say that we hadn't in the past, but this dude's going to be hungry to ball out this year, and we're going to benefit as a team from it. Now, the question is long term. I agree. I wouldn't tag him. I don't think you go from not exercising the 4th year option and then follow that up with a franchise tag. That guy will just retire to get away from you, So I would say something, like incentive based, or maybe a little less on the guaranteed front or something. 2-year deal, something like that, 2 to 3 year, possibly. I don't know. I'm not. I lost my GM hat. I don't know where it is. I can't find it.
For me, it's I want every player on the Packers roster back next year for the right price. So what would that price be for someone like Eric Stokes? If you can get him on a 3-year deal worth $5-6 million per, great. Now, if he was one of the best corners, if he grades out in the top 32, I'd be willing to crack maybe that around that 10 million mark per. But my guess is if he's one of the top 32, he's going to laugh at that offer and go test free agents. Yep. So to answer your question, Murph, we've already got so much cap tied up in Jair Alexander that it's so rare that you're going to pay 2 corners, top corner money, because the money is better allocated in different spots. And it always comes back to that roster modeling that Michael Lombardi talks about. Where do you want to spend the majority, the bulk of your cap? To me, it's tier 1 positions of importance. It's quarterback, left tackle, and on the opposite side, it's 3 technique, defensive tackle, and edge defender. Well, you've got the 3 tech right now. with Kenny Clark. You've got the edge defender with Rashawn Gary, in my opinion, and Lucas Van Ness coming on strong. Oh, by the way, Devontae Wyatt's pressure rate, if he can clean up that run defensive game, you're kind of set at both of those positions. You hop back over to offense at left tackle. Guess what? Rasheed Walker's playing pretty solid. You drafted Jordan Morgan, who can play left tackle, but right now he's predominantly a right guard in this year's team, right? So for me, I guess that position, you would have to move on to tier 2 on your roster model. I don't even have cornerback as tier 2. Now, we've talked about how it's gaining value because the RPO game has taken over so much. And the number one way you can disrupt an RPO game is by playing physical press at the line of scrimmage. So that's why teams are going out and overpaying for like L'Jarius Sneed, who all he really did well was play press, man press, right? That's important for stopping the RPO game. That's kind of it's still holding on very strong in the NFL right now. So.
I agree. And I think any good DB room is going to have at least one of those dudes, right? You got to have at least one of those physical press guys, if you want to find some success now, because it helps you take away a lot of that action that you're talking about.
And you've got to look up too. I think it was it Murph? Yeah, Murph asked this. You've also got to look up at this. Who's coming up for contract next year? Zach Tom, top priority. So pay Eric Stokes or pay Zach Tom. I'm paying Zach Tom over Eric Stokes, mainly for the reason that Tim said. You got Javon Bullard, who could probably play the slot a little bit. And on top of that, behind these guys, you've got Carrington Valentine, who, again, I'm not saying he's a superstar, but he held his own last year. And then you got Kalen King, who's really turning heads in camp. And people say, well, if you move Javon Bullard to the slot, Clayton, who's going to play safety? I'll tell you who's going to play safety. Look at this right here. PFF Green Bay Packers. Evan Williams in his NFL debut, 79.8 coverage grade. That was ranked first among rookie safeties. He had 15 coverage snaps, 14 receiving yards allowed, and 2 stops. Oh, by the way, a forced fumble. 1 preseason game. But if this dude, Tim, we've seen it on the college tape.
Yep.
The Packers drafted him way, way earlier than anyone had him on their draft board. So the best of mine, I know they drafted him way earlier than I had him on my draft board. So the Packers seen something. The college tape looks phenomenal. You go to training camp. He's absolutely lighting it up in training camp. I think he's leading the team in interceptions in training camp. Then he comes out in his first preseason game. Every step of the way, check box, check the box, check the box, check the box. If this dude keeps balling out, Keisean Nixon's going to be fighting for his football life because they're going to push Javon Bullard to that slot spot. And I'm right on the borderline of going, you know what? Let's do it. Because I want to see what this kid can do when the real bullets start flying. I really do. So.
Oh, I'm so excited for Sunday night because I'm hoping we'll get double the action with him out there. I mean, 15 snaps in coverage is pretty good. I don't know how many total snaps he played, but I'm hoping in my heart that the workload increases for him this week, and we'll get to see a lot more of him. Again, another guy they probably don't want to show too much, but hey, man, he's jumping off the film no matter how you shake it. Like you said, we can go back to college tape. We can go look at what he did last week, and it's going to continue. So I don't think you're really hiding this guy, but yeah, man, he is if Jacob were here, you know what Jacob would call him, right?
Yes, he would call him a very good football player.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. Yeah, no, but he's one of those guys that doesn't look like a rookie. And I mean, just physically playing shape. He doesn't look like a guy like, oh, you need to get your NFL body together. No, this guy's like ready now, physically, mentally. Almost like we were talking about. I believe that was Michael Pratt. We were saying, hey, the game's not too big for him. Same thing with Evan Williams. The game's not at all too big for him. And he's a very intelligent athlete as well. So you combine the intelligence, the football IQ, with the speed and the athletic ability that he possesses. And we all saw he's got a hit stick too, man. He will he'll knock your block off out there for sure. So I think he's going to be a stud. I really do.
Definitely. Next question from T. Rattler says, will the new kickoff rules impact the makeup of the 53? For example, more blocking types, tight ends, or running backs on the kickoff return team, more safety/DB types on the kick team. Don't need as many kamikaze types running 60 yards down the field to make a tackle on the kick team, right? On kickoff, correct. Punt, obviously, it goes without saying, nothing's changed.
Yep.
But for me, it seems like athletic linebackers would carry a little more weight than DBs in this because it is more of a running play than it is kind of a kick return. But I understand exactly what you're saying, Rattler. I think it will have a little bit of an impact on it. But what's so funny, though, is in the preseason, these teams, these special teams coaches, they're not tipping their hand. I don't know if you guys have watched, but they're playing real vanilla. They're not. They ain't going to give anybody any clue what they're going to do this year. So
that's true, and we've seen a lot of. I wonder if there's a little wink, wink, nod, nod stuff too before these preseason games, where, because I mean, we saw a lot of touchbacks last week as well on the kickoffs, and it's almost like, we don't even want to see their return. Just have your guy kick it out of the end zone. We'll just start at the 25. Let's not get anybody hurt out here.
Right.
But I like the question because this is why the league implemented this rule. Who is this on the? It's T. Rattler. Yeah. Let's see. Don't need as many kamikaze types running 60 yards down the field to make a tackle on the kick team, right? Exactly. That's exactly what the league is trying to get rid of. Is they don't want these guys flying 100 miles an hour and crashing into each other in the name of hopefully this reduces some injuries. But I think I agree, Clayton, man. I think an athletic linebacker, almost like we talked about Tariq Carpenter last year. We tried to make him like a hybrid safety linebacker kind of guy. Yeah, I could see guys like Evan Williams fitting in that unit. I could see guys like Javon Bullard fitting in that unit. Guys that can, lower the boom, but are still quick and athletic, agile, and can fly around out there. So, I think we will. I think we probably would see an emphasis on more linebackers and in the special teams unit there on the kicks.
Definitely. If you guys and gals would take a quick second, hit that like button for us. We've got a bunch of people in here. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We're going to be live daily throughout camp, throughout all season long. We'll be doing pre-game shows, post-game shows, the whole 9 yards. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Again, when you hit that like button on YouTube and sub to the channel, it helps more than you know. It really boosts us up the list and helps other Packer fans find the content and find our channel. We appreciate y'all so much. Next question here, Tim. Roger Davis says, what would be the number of sacks expected from a top 5 defense? Can our D reach that number? Great question, Roger. So what I did was I went ahead and pulled some numbers here, Tim. This was the league last year in combined sacks, okay, by team. The Ravens led the NFL with 58 combined sacks. The Chiefs were second with 57. The Dolphins were third with 56. Bills with 53. Then the Chargers with 48. So to answer your question, Roger, the Ravens led the way with 58 sacks. Now, if you're going to say top 5 defense, immediately people think, okay, top 5 in sacks. Let's assume you're talking about defensive, points allowed. So let's go to points per play, which is my favorite metric personally. So this is the points per play rankings. Baltimore 1 at 0.25, Kansas City Chiefs at 2 at 0.27, San Francisco 49ers at 3rd with 0.30, 4th is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 0.303, and then in the 5th spot is the Las Vegas Raiders at 0.304. So that was total defense points per play. Now, some people will say, I don't like the points per play. Okay, let's go to total defensive yards per play. Number 1 was the Jets. Number 2 was Baltimore. Number 3 was New England. Number 4 was Cleveland. And number 5 was the Kansas City Chiefs. So if we go back, sacks, Ravens, Chiefs, Dolphins. Points per play, Ravens, Chiefs, Niners. So Ravens and Chiefs are the two standing alone. And then defensive yards per play, Baltimore was second. The Chiefs were 5th. So I would say Baltimore and Kansas City were the 2 best defenses. Now, back to your original question. In sacks, the Ravens and the Chiefs were at number 1 and number 2 at 58 and 57. So somewhere between 58 and let's say 50, I think is a reasonable, hey, that'll put you in the top 5 in sacks. And it does kind of translate to the points per play, which I love, and the yards per play that a lot of other people like. So, Tim, any comments on that, man? Pretty cool to see those numbers for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we always talk about, sacks aren't everything, right?
Right.
I like we didn't even get into pressures, pressure, pass rush, win rate, things like that. There's a ton of metrics we could break down, but in a nutshell, they do correlate, right? It's no surprise that these are your top 2 defenses, and then look at the sack totals, right? So I would say anybody north of 50 is probably going to be in the ballpark. But as far as me being a Packer fan and a defensive football junkie that I am, I want to see pressures, because to me, you pressure that quarterback, make him throw it away. It's not as exciting as a sack. Don't get me wrong, but man, it's getting the job done, especially if you can get him to throw it away, make a bad decision, get a pick out of it or something, and turn it into some points. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I have said it. I don't do predictions often, but I think we could have a top 5, definitely top 10 defense this year. The potential is there. Extremely high ceiling.
And here's what I look at. I'm all about points per play. That's my big metric. I will die on that hill proudly, okay? The Packers were 12th in points per play. What I need to see from this Hafley defense is them crack the top 10. That'll say, okay, great move. We're getting even better as a defense, because 12th, in my opinion, wasn't horrible. You guys know I've been very vocal about that. I think some people painted the defense out to be worse than they actually were, but nonetheless, if Jeff Hafley cracks the top 10 here, we're off to the race. That's probably going to, for every 2 or 3 spots you move on this list here, Tim, you're probably going to win an extra game, Yeah. And I'm hearing some
probably add an extra year to his contract too.
Yeah. And I'm hearing people like Mark Tauscher say they feel like the ceiling of this Packers team is 14 wins. I'm going to tell you, if we get more wins this year, the most wins in Matt LaFleur's career as a head coach, with Jordan Love at the helm, I am going to be so damn fired up. It's not even funny, dude. I'm just telling you. It's and again, I've been pretty vocal. Last year I said 6 to 10 wins was kind of my prediction. They end up finishing with 9. This year I'm saying 9 to 12 is kind of the numbers I'm at. 9 floor, 12. I don't want to say ceiling, but could they win 13 games? Yeah. They could win 14. I could see it. The stars would kind of have to align and everybody stay healthy. But I feel really comfortable saying 11, 12 wins, probably in the ballpark for this Packers team. So 9 to 12 is my number for sure, though. So, all right, final question here, Tim. Mr. Goat says, in a world where the 32nd ranked nickel, which was Keisean Nixon, I'm assuming he maybe used PFF, I'm not sure, does not improve, is he paid too much to be demoted to teams, or does he demand a trade/release? If Stokes, Valentine, and 23, meaning Jair, are the best 3, and Williams, Bullard are better than 25, isn't that a good problem? Yes, sir, it is a good problem. Now, some people, you get one of 2 things here. People that it kind of feels like Mr. Goat's on my side, like, hey, I want the best 11 out there. Love Keisean, all that. He's a great kick returner. But if you're telling me someone else can play the slot better than him, throw him in there. Now, we've talked about PFF quite a bit. We're not going to dive into the PFF grade. That might have been what Mr. Goat was talking about, ranked 32nd. But when you go passer rating, when targeted here, the reality is these were the slot snaps. So this is SIS data sorted by only slot defenders. Everybody on every statistic you're seeing on the screen were like the big number in the middle there, like you see Keisean Nixon, 415. That's how many slot snaps he had. How many snaps on defense where he played the slot. So you'll see people like Denzel Ward. Then you'll also see like Derwin James, who had 141 snaps playing the slot for the Chargers, even though he's technically a safety. Same thing with Jordan Howden. Same thing with Antonio Johnson, right? So slot defenders, passer rating when targeted, Keisean Nixon was 88th. I say that because Mr. Goat was being kind of generous with the 32nd rank. Because the reality is Keisean Nixon got his lunch ate last year, man. 88th as a slot defender. So back to his question, is he paid too much to be demoted to teams, or does he demand a trade or release? If he can't handle another player playing the slot, Tim, and this is me, maybe I'm being an a-hole. This goes for any position across the team. If a player can't handle being demoted to a backup because they're not performing, I honestly don't want them on my – I don't want them – forget football. I don't want them in my organization. Yeah. If you know without a doubt, and we know without a doubt, you're not benefiting my company, my business, my team, whatever it is, better than another person who's hungry for that opportunity, and you say, I want to take my ball and go home, good riddance. I'm not saying Keisean will do that. I'm just simply saying that's how I see it.
What did Ice Cube say in Friday? Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, bye, Felicia.
Bye. Yeah. Oh, I'm demanding a trade, or I'm demanding a release. Okay, bye. Don't let the door.
And again, we're not saying Keisean's going to do that.
No, we're not. But you said any player, I don't care who it is. That's an attitude problem, and nobody's bigger than this team. Right. Now, to really focus in the meat and potatoes of the question, is he overpaid if he's just a special teamer? Well, I don't know. If he puts 20 touchdowns on the board this year in a return game, I mean, maybe not. I have said this, and I caught a lot of hell last year for saying it, but I'm wondering why we saw a little glimmer of it. They threw him like an end around or something in one of the games.
I might get more of that.
You know where I'm going with this. Whereas if we got to pull him out of the slot, why don't we pepper him in? Let's run a little 12 personnel with Keisean back there.
Mm-hmm.
And just see what they do. What the heck? And then maybe it just confuses somebody, and we don't even use them. And then maybe we go 21 set with Keisean out there, or maybe we run him out there as a flyer, even in a decoy fashion. Utilize him in the offensive attack, because the biggest attribute to Keisean Nixon's game is he is dynamic with the football in his hand.
And he's fearless.
Sounds like an offensive player to me.
He's so fearless with the ball, man. Like he is not afraid to play within those close quarters. And that's why I told you guys when they signed him, I was happy with that signing, and I still am. Because what you've got there, and I said it from day one, you've got a great kick returner, and you've got a high floor for a slot corner. And I mean that as you got a solid backup slot corner. Now, the numbers wouldn't suggest he's that good, but as a backup, and the fact that he just got how many snaps? 415 snaps from the slot position under his belt in year one as playing a slot corner, that's valuable. Availability, accountability, all those things, right? So,
but that would lead to the overpaid conversation, though. If he's slot corner number 2 or 3 on the depth chart, and we're paying him all this money,
he gets 3 or 4 kick return touchdowns. That's not overpaid, right?
Right.
So that's where the value truly lies, and you could tell that's where they seen it at, right? So, great question, though, man. All of these again. Shout out Mr. Goat, Roger Davis, T. Rattler, Cheesehead Murph, John Capel, and Ron Samble. I think I got everybody. Yeah, thank y'all so much for contributing there. That was a lot of fun. We're going to do that from time to time moving forward. That chat's going to be open, so fire questions in there. And again, please don't be offended if we don't use your question. There's going to be times where it's kind of slow and we can do this and dive into a bunch of them. But I just think it's another cool way to utilize that with the Patreon group. And again, if you want to join that, just scan that QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to our Patreon group. So, Tim, anything else, man? That was pretty cool that all the listener questions kind of took up the whole show, man. This was a fun little change of pace.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. Cheesehead Murph with a couple bangers in there. Yeah. Those were good. I'm gonna have to take an aspirin after this. My head hurts from trying to figure out that receiver question. But no, man, this is great. I'm looking forward to some football this weekend. We got a joint practice tomorrow in Denver, and then the boys will be playing football Sunday night. Man, it's a lot to be excited for. We are creeping up on week 1. Before you know it, we will be in Brazil playing against the Eagles.
That's going to be a great test too. Like, I know there's some people that feel real confident we're just going to win that game. I think it's going to be a damn dogfight. I think both teams, the juice will be so high for that Brazil crowd. It's going to be a great test for the Packers. Win, lose, or draw. We're going to come out of there going, okay, here's what we got to work on, or hey, this team's legit. Like, it's going to be a great first test. It really is. I'm excited about it. So.
Yeah, our guys better wake up with their piss hot, like I said before. So.
I love it. So here's the plan tomorrow, guys. I've got a high school game to go to tomorrow night. My nephew's playing, first game of the season. So no show tomorrow night. But me and Tim, if we were correct, we tried to do some research. It looks like at 11 a.m. tomorrow, Central Time, the Packers and the Broncos will be having a joint practice, okay? So the plan, if everything goes as planned, I'm going to go ahead and schedule it this way. We're going to try to go live around 11 or 11:30 a.m. Central Time, somewhere in that time frame. And we're going to do a live show giving you guys all the updates, all the news coming out of that joint practice, okay? So here's all I ask. Tomorrow's Friday. It's a work day. If you're working, don't get fired over these two knuckleheads right here, okay? Don't kind of watch the show while you're at work. You can watch it later. But if you find yourself available, or maybe you do a job where you can listen live on YouTube Premium or whatever, feel free to hop in here with us. Again, I'm going to go ahead and schedule it. That's the plan. We'll do the show tomorrow during the live joint practice. Hopefully we got that information correct. If we did not have that correct, you guys let us know in the chat, but I believe that's what we combed through and found, that joint practice will kick off around 11 a.m. Central tomorrow. So we might go a few minutes late to let it get cranked up, and we can go ahead and start hitting all the updates from everybody who's covering it there live. So there you go. Tim, I appreciate your time tonight, buddy. This was a lot of fun. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all. Everybody in the Patreon group, appreciate you. We'll see you guys tomorrow and gals tomorrow around 11 a.m. Central Time. So that being said,
for those of you listening on the pod,
thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.